there to check out IndependentLeft.news.
The Indie News Network.
Indie Left News.
Oh, hey, Indie Left.
IndependentLeft.news. Great work.
Indie Left News.
IndependentLeft.news.
Independent Left News.
Shout out to Independent Left News. Shout out.
Oh, what's up, Independent Left?
Friend show.
Thank you, IndependentLeft.news.
INN, Indie, you're wonderful.
I think Indie was onto something.
Independent News Network, Indie News.
Yeah. What's up, Indie, over on Rockfin?
Independent News Network, also known as INN.
Indie Left News.
I don't know if I would have made it through that 3 weeks without Indie, honestly.
No, I was just going to ask Indie.
A huge thank you and shout out to Indie Left.
No, you know what we're doing? We're world building, Indie.
Indie Left News.
You were doing the INN recruiting.
Indie News.
Independent Left News.
Shout out to Independent Left News.
Check out Independent Left News.
At Indie News.
I see Indie's in the chat. Hi, Indie! Okay, great.
Hey! I don't know what just happened, but it froze. Who are these people? You know who these people are. I'm Indie. Yep. That's Reef right there. It's Sunday, and holy shit, guys. What? Guys! No, we're not going to be corporate media around here. We're not going to chase that stupid bullshit. That's not what we do here.
Bad news. Bad things are happening.
Oh, well, certain people certainly seem to want to think so. Certain people were jumping up and down and going, oh my goodness, and making a big thing out of it. And yeah, I don't want to talk about that at all, really. Like, you want to go find that, you can find that on a lot of different places. So we're going to be the We're gonna be the anti that. All right. And in case you didn't hear and you can't see down there, this is How Do We Miss That? It's Sunday night. It's 10 o'clock. Everybody's like wanting to chill out and relax. And I've got some horrifying stories to bring everybody that you might have missed this week because the news is completely distracted. No, that's Shane Gillis. Come on, that's Shane Gillis. You have to properly credit who that is.
Opponent's gay. I walked in, I saw him, I said, wow, this guy's gay.
Oh, come on. Come on, man. Come on, man. All right. We got that QR code up there. That's to hook up INN in case you haven't yet and you're of means and able to and are having some fun with us tonight because we're going to, well, I don't know. We'll talk about some one good thing, which is New York Amazon workers organizing, but of course we're going to call that out for some bullshit too. Talk about the censorship industrial complex, and we had a win there, a bit of a win, but we're also going to talk about Gaza, and of course there's not much winning there. Now, I kind of clickbaited everybody, and I have to apologize, but after taking a closer look at that story that I teased at the beginning about the 20 trillion missing, I can't really do that story on YouTube, so we're going to have to record that and put that out on Rockfin Rumble at another time, because that's got some things that we know that algorithm does not like, and we can't risk our channel. Because that also happened this week, and I'll give you guys the lowdown on that, was that we got 2 content strikes or content claims, takedown requests from another network, and we're working it out. But right now, if anything happens, we could potentially lose our channel, and we're just going to be good little boys and girls. So
You are tearing me apart, Lisa!
yeah. Who is Lisa? Lisa?
Bros never watch The Room.
Oh, hi, Mark.
No.
Oh, hi, Mark.
No.
God, you're so uncultured. Haven't watched The Room.
Well, all right. So we're gonna get to Indie Media Award honoree Sam Husseini. Thank you. Indie Media Award. IndieMediaAwards.com. You can get there. It's a link tree, and you can find all the 70 honorees. So look at this. Russiagate was Israelgate. which he published the other day, and I thought that was pretty interesting. Russiagate, we know, was a lot of fun, and everybody's been talking about Russiagate lately.
Russian scum!
Yeah. So this time, we're saying that, he's saying that after Trump won 2016, the Obama admin finally, after years of stalling, allowed a UN Security Council resolution condemning Israel's building of colonial settlements, which violates the Fourth Geneva Convention and always has. It's just that the U.S. has always blocked a resolution, right? Netanyahu asked the Trump transition team to lobby other countries to help Israel stop the resolution from passing. Netanyahu would sleep in Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner's bed. Creepy. I hope Jared wasn't in there when he visited New York.
He might have been. We don't know.
Maybe Ivanka was. Who knows? Kushner ordered General Michael Flynn, who would become Trump's national security advisor, for about 6 weeks until he had to resign for some stupid shit, to contact the Russian government. Russian
Let
scum.
me call the Russians to help.
On December 22nd, 2016, Flynn contacted then Russian ambassador Sergei Kislyak, asking the Russians to delay the vote until Trump got into office and then could veto it. The Russians didn't do what Kushner wanted, because on December 23rd, the UN Security Council passes Resolution 2334, condemning Israeli settlement building, with the U.S. abstaining. But going back on January 28th, 2016, just 5 days later, outgoing President Barack Obama imposed sanctions on Russia, ostensibly because of alleged Russian interference, quote unquote, in the 2016 U.S. presidential election. Funny. Kislyak then contacted Flynn about getting the sanctions reversed. As you would, knowing that sanctions were put on Russia. That is the origin of Russiagate, which dominated U.S. political discourse for years. It was Flynn contacting the Russians.
Putin's a madman.
It was Flynn contacting the Russians to do a favor for Israel. Oh,
nice.
How about that?
Nice.
How about
Great. I
that?
hope you think they helped them build a tunnel too?
Secret tunnel.
That happened?
Now,
Secret tunnel.
Hey, you stole my line. He follows up with another article and says, Trump and the plan for the ethnic cleansing of Gaza. Will the Gaza genocide end the same way that Russiagate began? And he asks, is Israel pulverizing Palestinian society and stalling for time so that a Trump administration will greenlight a mass expulsion? Well, we've known and we've been saying here that Trump will be no better, of course, for the people of Gaza than Biden. We are screwed either way because Biden is blue Trump, is blue Trump, and Trump is red Biden. Either way,
You're fired.
With the exception of what might happen in Ukraine, and they may shift that money to Mexico or somewhere else, nothing will fundamentally change, just like we were promised 4 years ago. So again, this is from Indie Media Award-winning journalist Sam Husseini, who sits in D.C. He is in the State Department press briefings. He occasionally, I believe, gets into the White House press briefings, and he asks tough questions. He's been making Matthew Miller, which is Count Smugula, really squirm lately. Love what he's doing there, as well as the Department of Defense, their guy, and there's another. There's a third one. No, not Sergei.
Sergei.
So he says, in my last piece, I recalled how Russiagate was actually Israelgate because it was Flynn doing a favor for Israel at the UN and asking Russia to do a favor that led to Russiagate in the first place, and Flynn having to resign, and them investigating Carter Page and Papadopoulos and all the crap that went down in 2017. A lot of people forget all that stuff. I kind of had to be reminded myself because so much has happened since then.
Hi, Meanby.
Amberberries. Right? So what Sam says here is that similar dynamics may be before us in terms of collusion between Netanyahu and Kushner and Trump. In late May, Israel's National Security Director, Chachi Hanegbi, not Chachki, but Chachi Hanegbi, said the attack on Gaza would likely last for another 7 months, meaning until the end of this year. Look, we had heard from Mondo Weiss and others that they were expecting it to go into 2025. So that's actually a more conservative estimate than the ones that we've heard, amazingly enough. It seems quite possible that what's happening that Israel is obliterating Palestinian society throughout Gaza, destroying hospitals, targeting schools, and forcing the Palestinians to move around Gaza over and over, including into tent cities. And then we know they're bombing those 10 cities. The latest move is Israel trying to clear Gaza City in the north. Which, yes, and there's a kill zone. And I think you guys have covered that over on INN News, Reef and Cullen, Wednesday nights, 9 o'clock. Go check that out. Okay?
Yeah.
In October 2023, the Biden administration was bankrolling tent cities in Egypt, paving the way for an ethnic cleansing campaign. Yeah, they tend to do that, don't they?
We talked about this.
President Blinken, or whatever, acting President Blinken, has said no forcible displacement of Palestinians from Gaza. Not now, not after the war. But Trump could.
Boy, that escalated quickly.
But Trump could greenlight a forcible displacement. Indeed. The recent CNN debate, Trump said Israel should finish the job. Well, speaking of finish the job, somebody tried. Well, we're not talking about that. In March, Jared Kushner commented that Gaza's waterfront property could be very valuable, and he's been hawking it all over the United States ever since. In New Jersey, in LA, in Toronto, we've reported on that. And of course, Trump has been able to do things no conventional U.S. president could or would, especially regarding Israel. As Sam wrote in, quote, Trump is the opposable thumb of the establishment. He had written previously.
Opposable thumb.
Yes. The establishment.
Thumb for sure.
Well, he's barely a shaved ape. So, yes, I guess it fits. Well, although I know that people say he has
anyway, I started blasting.
No body hair, which is embarrassing. Not very manly. Not very manly. The establishment long wanted to move the U.S. Embassy, of course, to Jerusalem and recognize Israel's annexation of the Golan Heights. It seemed an untenable thing for a president to do until Donnie Tiny Hands. And then, of course, he did move at Miriam Adelson and Sheldon Adelson's demand. He moved the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem while everybody screamed.
He moved the embassy. He wasn't just dip ducking and diving.
He might have done a little dip ducking and diving. He's not Kevlar Don. He's Teflon Don. Come on, let's call it for what he is. Hey, watch them ricochets, man.
I'm gonna have fun with that tonight.
Monans, Annie, what's up, bro? Man, this. Well, yes. So he annexed that, and then the Golan Heights, which Netanyahu literally named the Trump Heights because he let him do it. Don't you remember? Yeah. Don't you remember? Yes, look at how they massacred my boy. I mean, the Golan Heights, they stole it from Syria, gave it to Israel, and then named it the Trump Heights. Which is exactly what Trump loves to do, stick his name on something that he didn't earn.
You can do it, baby.
Financial Times reported in October that Israel's Netanyahu lobbied EU to pressure Egypt into accepting Gaza refugees. We also reported that multiple times, and that the Israel initial plan, or their final quote-unquote solution, is to drive anyone who's left directly into this mile and a half area that Egypt has been building a wall, by the way, a mile and a half in. We talked about that several weeks ago, right? in anticipation that at some point Israel is going to drive everybody else out through the Russiagate, and Egypt's going to have to accept them in exchange for their forgiving of major, what is it, IMF or World Bank loans, a couple of $1 billion, if I remember correctly. All right. So yes.
Don't be rude.
Yeah, you're right. You're right, Himbo. I'm sorry. I'm being rude. But Financial Times reported in October that, Netanyahu lobbied the EU to pressure them into accepting them, Egypt into accepting refugees. But recently, Egypt has gotten billions from the IMF and the UAE. Huh, that's interesting.
Okay.
Who's got big connections to the UAE and Dubai? I believe that might be Trump. Egypt is now ruled by Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, who destroyed movements toward reform following the Arab uprisings of 2011. And Egypt has long been criticized as complicit and duplicitous regarding Israel's siege against Gaza. There were even questions as to whether they warned the Israelis ahead of time that they knew something was coming. I don't know if that checked out or not. I know that there was a lot of talk about it. People are saying.
There's been back and forth on that.
People are saying. All right. Thus, Israel is pulverizing the Palestinians in Gaza to the point that with Trump's likely election in November, they can start their full-fledged ethnic cleansing campaign. Can they start their full-fledged ethnic cleansing campaign then? Will they try to buy off Egypt, at least as a departure point for a mass expulsion? Ha! As if I didn't just say that. Well, it's possible that the transition period in particular might be when Israel would plan to execute an expulsion. In 2009, after Obama won the election and before taking office, Israel launched Operation Cast Lead, which killed, of course, over 1,300 Palestinians in 22 days.
Thanks, Obama.
Yeah. Thanks, Obama. And thank you to everyone out there. It's me, Sarah P. Thank you especially. I woke up to a couple of support bucks, and I don't want to call them donations because it's contributions to the work that we do here, and we really appreciate it.
Donations, whatever.
Stop. We don't want to talk about that. We're not crowdfunders. We're fine. We make things.
We are.
Stop it.
We fund the biggest crowds. Great.
Now, there's a lot more going on in Gaza, of course, than what we talked about there. One of the things that we did talk about is there's a new publication out on Substack, which is your favorite place to read things, I know. All right, now.
Coming to a Substack newsletter near you.
She hasn't started one yet this week, but Cara Mariana did. Yeah. Now, she already has her own previous publication. She also works with Patrick Lawrence, who writes The Flautist, and now she's starting one called West Bank Alerts. So these are, and I wanted to bring this because this is important, stories from people on the ground. She says that because she's been there so often, and I read this and I'm like, oh, this is really cool. We have to bring this because not many people, unfortunately, in our circles are going to hear this, and I think you can all subscribe for free and get these. So she says, note to readers, I now announce the launch of a new Substack newsletter devoted to keeping readers up to date on events in occupied Palestine, West Bank Alerts. Since returning from the West Bank at the end of May, I've received almost weekly updates from friends and contacts there who describe a rapidly deteriorating situation. These missives arrive by text and email. More than once, I've received phone calls. They include heart-wrenching descriptions, a 7-year-old beaten by Israeli soldiers, and often include videos and pictures, burned olive groves, destroyed homes, settlers, and Israeli occupation forces raiding villages. Okay? As these updates arrive, as several did while I was working on my first 2 articles for the Palestinian Voices series that she's writing, my emotions fluctuate between rage and grief. It seemed to me that a new and unexpected responsibility has landed in my lap to find a new way to report on these situations and events as they happen, It's taken me several weeks to determine the best way to do this. West Bank alerts will focus solely on presenting updates from my sources in Palestine. These will be brief news flashes rather than lengthy essays. Publication will depend on the flow of reportage coming from Palestine and my workload. I'll do my best to keep as current as possible. West Bank Alerts is an experiment, very much a work in progress. She was not trained as a journalist, and she thanks everyone for their patience and support, and together she hopes that we navigate this new terrain. Our input and comments will be welcome. So, yeah, let her know how you think, what you think. I assume this additional work with a sense of urgency, every one of us is now called upon to do all that we can to support the cause of freedom and justice for the people of Palestine. And she's making it freely available to all. Again, winterwheat.substack.com. This will all be in the descriptions and in our Substack with all the links to everything after the episode's over. Winter Wheat. And she actually published something today, Israel's 7-front war, just 5 hours ago. So she's already starting to get this going. And I'm here to support her for that for sure. I think that's awesome. So thank you, Kara. And we will definitely be subscribed. I already am. And we'll see what comes out of there and what else we can share with everyone. And I think we've been seeing a lot of the stuff in our news feeds also. But this is another way to document that in case anybody's account gets zapped or they decide to censor any of this stuff. This is just another place you've got to put it to make sure that people see it. All right. So, how's everybody doing out there? What's happening? What are you doing, man? How you doing?
We're waiting on you to get through your stories.
Okay. The next one is absolute fucking fire. All right. So, I think it was Oz sent me this video of this woman, a Jewish woman. Hey, that's what I wanted to say.
A winner.
A winner. We got it. How you doing, Cynic? We're good. All right. This woman, I would like to blast at 15 volume for every single Zionist, both in and out of my family, that has to listen, that is screaming about college campuses, that is screaming about Jewish, Jews being unsafe. That is, man, just listen. And holy crap, I'm going to shut up for 5 minutes and listen to this, and let's talk about it after.
Okay, it feels important to say this. I am not pulling my perspective on Israel-Palestine out of my ass, okay? I'm not just guessing that Israel is committing a genocide against Palestine. I have studied and researched this. I have bona fides, and I will share them. First of all, I'm a Jewish woman. I was raised by a Zionist family. My grandfather was a Holocaust survivor. My family talks about our spirit of resistance and resilience constantly. Desiring goodness from the nation of Israel is in my blood, and still, I can see that this Zionist state is vicious, violent, and evil. If someone who is raised by a Zionist family, by people who believe that Israel has the right to exist and that it is our salvation, if I can overcome my pro-Israel bias and learn about this conflict, so can you. And frankly, I should not be calling it a conflict, it's a genocide. So when I was in college around 2012, 2013, a bunch of my friends and loved ones started going on birthright trips. And I knew enough then to ask the question when they got back from their birthright trips, what about Palestine? And when these people I love, admire, and respect started talking about Palestinians and using language like terrorists, I knew I had to learn more. I also knew that I wanted to go on birthright, and I was nervous about being brainwashed by the trip, and I should have been nervous. So before I went on birthright, I decided at my small liberal arts school in Massachusetts to get a well-rounded perspective, educational perspective on Israeli-Palestinian politics. I took 4 courses: Suffering and Evil in the Jewish Tradition, The Jewish Experience, Middle East Politics, and Arab-Israeli Conflict. I also took international and comparative politics courses that often brought up Israel and Palestine in comparisons to, for example, apartheid South Africa. And by the time I finished my ample coursework on the subject before I went on birthright, I was already pro-Palestine. Because once you are in the literature, once you are in the research, not the media stories about this, not the pro-Zionist rigmarole on CNN and MSNBC, once you are in the literature and the data, this isn't a debate. This isn't a question. People talk about Israel-Palestine like it is incredibly complicated, and I reject that premise. It is not. We know that anti-Semitism exists globally, right? We know that Jews are not the most beloved population in the world. We know that Britain has a colonial history and they have taken on colonial projects even through the 20th and 21st centuries. Essentially, Britain already wanted to colonize Palestine. So did the United States. And at the end of World War II, Britain and the US got to talking and they thought, who do we want to exploit for military labor someplace that is surrounded by brown people so that we can rape and pillage land that we don't currently have access to? Where's one part of the globe we haven't effectively colonized yet? And there was Palestine. And Britain had been trying to colonize Palestine already. And so this was passed off to Jews who had just survived the Holocaust as a gift. Here we're granting you this parcel of land so that you and your progeny can exist in peace and not be violated anymore. Congratulations. Except that land already belonged to someone. Palestinians were already living there. And the US and Britain didn't give a shit about the well-being of Jews. They didn't care. This wasn't a gift for Jews. This was always intended to be a trap of, you do our military labor for us. We'll put you here and we'll grant you this parcel of land that already belongs to someone, that there are already people on. And in return, you will rape and pillage that land for us and we'll just all share in the wealth. And it might be a good idea too if like your entire population were to, have conscripted military service so you can really defend that land that is yours, totally yours, bucko. And if you see who has emerged as the political leadership of Israel over the last few generations, this won't surprise you. This insidiousness will not surprise you. This is how you get Benjamin Netanyahu, someone who absolutely agrees to the premise of Israel as a Zionist ethno-nationalist state, who says, we are here for one thing and one thing only, is to garner as much wealth from this earth that we have, as much tourist property from this plot of land, convert it to dollars, and build up a military so mighty, a military apparatus so great that we wind up producing the world's weaponry. Yes, we have mined this land, and we have used the land to give you war machinery so that we can all murder each other 1,000 times over. And to the people already living here, well, we'll murder them too. I took basically a semester and a half of college courses on this, and I know in my bones that what Israel is doing right now is a genocide. It's evil. What they've been doing for the last 75 years is a genocide. It is drip violence, slow violence, protracted harm. It is meant to exhaust the civilian population of Palestine. It is meant to exhaust all Palestinians out of their will to fight. And all the benefit, the wealth garnered from that land goes to the primary stakeholders, not the Palestinian people to whom the land originally belonged.
I give that lady a massive fucking mic drop. I'll tell you right now, holy crap.
Mm-hmm.
Holy crap. There's just so much that she put down there. The thing that she didn't really say without saying really is about Jewish supremacy, and the thought and the prevailing thought around that within the community. She talked about goodness and whatever, and God, again, it just, she stunned me in my tracks, and I'm like, everybody's got to hear this, and I wish that people in my family also wanted to listen to that.
I don't know if want is the right thing there.
Well, I think that if they started to, they would turn it off. And I think that not just my own family, but I don't think that there was that. It was last week we talked about how the entire Jewish diaspora sees themselves as a family interconnected through quote unquote Israel. But if you see a family member doing wrong, isn't it your duty as a family member to do something and say something to stop that from happening in the future? Isn't that more your responsibility than anybody else's? So,
I don't know. You grew up in that culture as, pressure from family and, passive aggressive, like, no.
Well,
no, none of that.
I don't know what you're talking about. I have no idea. Yes. Okay. Sean, mic drop is exactly what I wanted to see right there. Yeah, she was fantastic. And you can see her over on the TikToks. Obviously, I'll put a link to that in the description afterwards.
A winner.
Oh man, how much is her portfolio up to this week?
A lot.
Microsoft is banning Palestinians for life from using Skype if they call their relatives in Gaza.
Nice.
This came out of the BBC of all places that did an investigation. Mint Press News picked it up, put out this nice graphic on Instagram as well as on Twitter. Not X, but Twitter. Somebody says time to switch to Linux, and you can explain why that's not a good idea. Mostly it's software related.
Great in theory, but yeah, there's a lot of software issues with that.
But here we go. A BBC investigation found that numerous cases existed where Palestinians have had their Microsoft accounts abruptly shut down for making calls to their relatives in Gaza. One affected user, a Palestinian in the U.S., said, "I've had this Hotmail account for 15 years. They banned me for no reason, saying I violated their terms. What terms? Tell me." Then they told them, "You are Hamas, sir." Effectively, Hamas. Yes, everybody is Hamas. So, yes, that anybody within Gaza at this point, thanks to Microsoft kowtowing to the Israeli government, that they are going to, or they have been banning certain accounts that I'm guessing that the Israeli AI system is telling Microsoft, hey, you need to ban these people because they are Hamas, whether they are or aren't. And how much evidence they have towards that, I have no idea, honestly. But it's weird that it's happening to people that live abroad that are calling their relatives to see if they're alive. And I read an article on MSN from the BBC that I didn't bring with us that said that Skype often works even when there's no internet, which is why a lot of people in Gaza have Skype when they can even get power to their phones.
Know how that works, but okay.
Yeah, I don't either. It's got some other direct connection. It's the way that I believe that Apple works, like how Apple messaging works, even if you are not necessarily connected to the internet. Like it used to be that when I was on an airplane, Apple messaging would actually work if I was connected to like Wi-Fi, but no other kind of DMs or instant messages or anything would. All right, Old Man Barker, good to see you, sir. I hope everything's working out well and you guys kind of worked out that thing that was going on the other night. I know it's kind of crazy. And Charlie Mack put out a tweet with your PayPal address. I believe it's just @oldmanbarker, paypal.me/@oldmanbarker. If anybody can help him out with a couple bucks, that's really cool. Oh, speaking of a couple of bucks.
Rent is too damn high.
Yeah, we're all getting squeezed, everyone. So if there's any way that you're able to, we know it's tough out there for everyone. Couple of bucks. Again, Sarah was really generous and she was able to help us out with some money this weekend. And we're trying to get Jesse a new computer. We had a part blow on Reef's machine. I had a power cable thing blow on my machine. You know, this is the regular stuff that we deal with on a daily basis, just in order to be able to do this stuff. So anything that anybody can do to help, certainly it's appreciated and necessary, because we're not getting sponsor money and we're not getting advertiser dollars, and you guys are the only people that we depend on for any kind of funding and any kind of support. So we deeply appreciate it. Let's go to the chats, if there are any chats. They got a friend of mine in high school. Kid came back a completely different person. I think you're talking about Birthright Trip, Earl of Laurel. I also have family members that had fantastic experiences on Birthright. I wouldn't necessarily even say that it was a brainwashing, but they're very defensive about it because it was such a good experience. And I'm like, of course it was going to be a good experience. They wanted to lay out the land of milk and honey for you so that you would actually want to come back and take land when you were older, because that's literally what they were offering to you as your birthright. That's why you were going on a birthright trip, sponsored by the Adelson family. Oh yeah, that's what's going on there. So, and I have, again, pretty close experience with that. Not direct experience. I never went on a birthright trip myself, but I know people who did. And they had positive experiences. They didn't feel badly about it. Some decided that they wanted to go back and stay on a kibbutz and have another trip there. So I don't even know,
You want to go to Israel? I go, why?
Well, because they'll fund a whole a nice trip, and they'll take you down to the beach, and they'll show you the best of the best of the
grass
best.
Is green and
exactly, and
the girls are pretty. Pretty
much, Paradise City. You got it. And they'll even hook you up in some cases. They'll commingle, and it's like, well, there's a lot of that going on because, well, they're young and they're whatever. But yes, again, they want you to have roots and ties and a reason to come back. Hey now.
We weren't talking about hooking up.
We haven't.
Sorry, children.
Yeah, sorry, children. We haven't really covered this publication much in the last year or so, and there's a good reason. And for a while, I was using their stuff, and I thought they've got some really good articles. And there's a guy named Luis Feliz Leon who got really chummy with the Teamsters, and a guy named Jonah Furman also, who was one of their top writers over there or affiliated. And he went to go work for Teamsters for a Democratic Union. And all of a sudden, it became very pro-Teamster, very pro-Teamster leadership narrative. And I read something, actually, there was an article a couple of months ago about that, and I may bring that down the road. But this one I wanted to bring because it was actually written by two Amazon New York workers talking about some of the things that they're trying to do to organize and to fight Amazon for better working conditions, and some of the things that they're going through. And this is one of the things that we've always tried to do on How Do We Miss That and on INN, is to bring the voice of the worker directly to you. We've interviewed several current and former Amazon warehouse employees, not only from JFK, but JFK 8 in Staten Island, where they had the Amazon labor union organizing with now the Teamsters, but also from other warehouses around the country. In this case, you have people from the 5 New York City warehouses coming together to make demands of Amazon. And I love this. 4 New York Amazon, I'm saying 4 New York Amazon facilities. Apologies. The workers marched on management to deliver the petitions at 4 facilities from Amazonians United NYC. That's a separate group that has broken out. This is out of labor notes. Again, 600 of our Amazon coworkers at 5 warehouses around New York signed a petition demanding starting wages of $25 an hour, time and a half pay for Prime Day, which is coming up in 2 days. Seasonal workers converted to permanent status within 30 days of employment. That doesn't seem unreasonable. And Juneteenth is a paid holiday. Of course.
Okay.
The June 19th holiday celebrates the end of slavery in the U.S. and became a federal holiday in 2021, the first new federal holiday since MLK Day was recognized in 1983. So they organized petitions across 5 warehouses. Like I said, it was 5. So they delivered the petitions to managers at 4. They organized petitions across 5, which was LDJ5 on Staten Island, which famously had a failed vote after the JFK 8 winning vote that was in May of 2022, and AOC and Bernie had famously stump speeched outside of LDJ5 right before the failed vote. Packages were rerouted, and LDJ5 packages are routed to local facilities, the Massive Fulfillment Centers, JFK 8 on Staten Island, SWF1 in the Hudson Valley, which is where the customer orders are packed, and the delivery stations DBK4 and DNJ3 in Queens and in the Bronx, where packages are put into delivery vehicles and dispatched to mailboxes or doorsteps. So they're really kind of telling you a little bit behind the scenes about the delivery chain. And the nerds like me who follow this stuff actually appreciate learning which ones do what and who goes where. Because then it helps when I actually talk to the workers later on so that I know what's going on in their facility. At the smaller delivery stations with only a couple hundred employees, nearly half the workers signed. And at 4 of the 5 warehouses, groups of workers have delivered the petition to Amazon management. So that's their montage video. All right. Coordinating their across workplaces. So this is a good thing, right? We began planning the petition in the New York region through what we call the Amazon Workers Summit, a loose network of workplace committees across New York and New Jersey. Worker leaders from each committee participated. I wonder how they actually communicated, what tools they used to actually do that and stay in touch, whether that was like a Slack group or what's the other one that Zuckerberg has? I'm blanking. It's like instant message with groups, and I don't use it. It's the one that everybody overseas uses that one. Someone will know it. At the summit meetings, we discussed which issues were important. We agreed on some common issues and brought them back to our warehouse committees. Once all the committees agreed on the key demands, we launched petitions in each warehouse. The main way we got signatures was just talking to people. What a surprise. Amazon treats us like numbers, but we've made it a point to get to know each other as coworkers and friends. This is the same stuff we talked about when we talked about the Massachusetts teachers, when we talked about the Kellogg's workers, when we talked about UAW workers. When people actually start talking to each other, they find they have a lot more in common and can get a lot done, but Amazon keeps them siloed. We made sure to have these conversations on non-work time and in non-work areas, so it was protected, concerted activity under the National Labor Relations Act, because we know that Amazon is very quick to fire people for violating those kinds of acts and having these kinds of conversations that they deem anywhere outside of work, within work time or within working areas. They also made sure to reach out to all the different social groups in their warehouses so that the committees represented everyone. I mean, that's great. They got 600 signatures. That's definitely not everyone at 5 warehouses, but they heard people's grievances and desires to make change. Many workers are going through the same kinds of struggles to make rent and cover groceries. Of course they are, because of what Amazon pays them, and they don't get full-time hours.
Yep.
We all want stability, economic security, and respect. Basics. We connected.
Rent is too damn high.
Yes, that's right. The rent is too damn high. We connected, but that's not Amazon's fault necessarily. That's BlackRock and Vanguard and the other hedge funds that are buying up all the real estate, all the residential real estate and pricing people out.
Capitalism.
That's right, Tim Curry. We connected those issues to what it would take to achieve change, collective action. Now, we've definitely talked about that before, and what are you for? Now, this is what they're for. By coming together, we felt less alone in our struggle to survive while working at Amazon. One of the things that they're fighting for is Juneteenth. Why? I don't think that it really is much of a question, but Juneteenth became a symbol of respect. We pointed out to our coworkers that the federal government has recognized it as a holiday for 3 years. Why not Amazon? The company already recognizes July 4th to celebrate the freedom of the country, but it doesn't honor a paid holiday to recognize the liberation of millions of enslaved people? This is an insult to workers who share these routes. And there are a lot of them at the warehouse level. Let's call it for what it is. They hire a lot of workers of color.
Well, I think that's why they would be remiss to do it, right? Because how much of their population would celebrate that? You know what I mean? Like,
well, yeah, but it's that their executive team,
you know,
largely, I would guess, is pretty bleached. So
yes, yeah.
Instead, Amazon pays lip service to Juneteenth by offering food at some warehouses and Juneteenth themed pins. Not even a pizza party. Even
Dude, they get like Juneteenth pizza party. That's what Amazon hasn't come up with yet.
Well, food in some warehouses. Maybe it literally is the Juneteenth pizza party.
Yeah.
And pins.
Or something
pins
somehow more racist.
That they had made on Temu, right? Or from one of their Amazon overseas distributors.
Yeah. The Amazon sweatshop.
Yep. The mismatch between what Amazon says and what it actually does makes the holiday an issue for many workers, and that makes sense. Then you've got the $25 an hour where they say that we've made the case for hiking the minimum wage, starting wage to $25 to combat the growing cost of living and attain economic stability. This is the New York region. They should be fighting for $30 or $35 an hour probably to start now, especially because they're part-timers. I mean, if you're getting 3 hours a day, $25 an hour is $75. $35 an hour is $105. I mean, that covers your commuting costs to work, pre-tax, of course. Amazon recently hit $2 trillion in market cap for the first time. Meanwhile, we're scraping by. Thank you, Dr. Bezos. Some coworkers live with their parents because they can't afford to move out. For those of us with kids, it's even harder to pay rent, groceries, and bills. Many people take second and third jobs to make ends meet. That's the Joe Biden economy. You know, oh, they've added all these jobs. Yeah, I've got 3 of them, and I'm doing great. I still can't make my rent.
Okay.
We made the case for hiking the minimum wage, starting wage to $25 to combat the growing cost of living and attain economic stability. Amazon recently hit $2 trillion in market value for the first time. Meanwhile, we're scraping by. Some coworkers live with their parents because they can't afford to move out. For those of us with kids, it's even harder to pay for rent, groceries, and bills. Many people take second and third jobs to make ends meet. We work hard and put our bodies on the line to the point of injury to generate Amazon's lucrative profits. This is one of the biggest corporations in the world. It can afford to pay the living wage we're demanding. More than afford it, by the way. It can also afford to make workers permanent after 30 days. Most workers at Amazon are hired initially as seasonal. Their white badges mark them as workers with no job security who don't get all the paid time off benefits that permanent blue badge workers do. I remember when we first talked to Matt from Kentucky, he talked about that. And that they also were rehiring people multiple times. Right now, Amazon can keep people in white badge status for up to 11 months. They're often fired after peak season. So they'll keep you and string you along and keep you in this limbo and then just broom you. And then 6 months later, you can come back and get rehired and start the process over again. The next Prime Day sales rush is coming up July 16th and 17th. That's in a couple days. Amazon promotes Prime Day as a time when customers can get great deals, but in our warehouses, these savings come at a steep cost. It means that we have to process even more packages in a tight time frame to get them out for delivery. It's like another Christmas minus the snow and Santa Claus, and plus sweltering heat. The grueling pace of work takes a toll on our bodies and well-being, so we deserve compensation during this intensified period when we know Amazon is also making extra profits. Last year, Amazon made $13 billion in sales on Prime Day, and that number has been growing every year. So, yeah, it's like another Black Friday. That's what they're saying here. In 2 days, there's another Prime Day, and they want time and a half from going forward for Prime Days. They should get it for Black Friday as well. All right. They also, these issues are widespread across Amazon facilities. Our next step is to ask coworkers to do something about them, sign the petition, and get involved in our organizing for the long haul. Once we get enough signatures across all the warehouses, we deliver the petitions to management. At DBK4, we announced the petition at the morning stand-up meeting and handed out Juneteenth buttons on break. We then rallied everyone to join us during lunch in the break room and walked with a group of 20 people to management's office for the delivery. Multiple workers spoke up about the demands. Management, of course, refused to accept the petition, saying that would be recognizing the union. Heaven forbid they actually did that, but we expected that. The most important thing is that our coworkers saw their own power, recognizing that we are a union by acting like one, whether management likes it or not. The mood in the warehouse afterwards was positive. Many coworkers said they thought it was a strong action and asked how they could get more involved. Seeing dozens of coworkers standing together helped people overcome their fear and showed that collective action is possible. We're just getting started. So this is Dylan and Mirage. They work at DBK4 in New York City. I may need to reach out to them and see if we can get them in for a conversation. All right, this was the at Amazon Teamsters. They gathered over 600 signatures from coworkers and demanded $25 an hour in Juneteenth. Like we said, that's the tweet. There's the video.
This is 600 people on this petition talking as one. They can address us as 600 people as one.
We got something to say. We got something to say.
We were told by Amazon that we would have every time to do something with Juneteenth, and we were not given that. So because Amazon turned their backs on us, we will now turn our backs on Amazon.
They turn their backs on us. We turn our backs on them. They turn their backs on us. We turn our backs on them.
Don't you think that Juneteenth ought to be a great holiday?
Yeah.
It's a day that celebrates the emancipation of American workers, and we have holiday bunting all over this building to remind us of how important it is. Everything but recognition as a holiday, the same way the federal government does.
We come here and work really hard day in and day out, and some of our coworkers are having trouble finding places left to live. They are homeless, working more than 40 hours plus, when this company makes billions and billions of dollars off our hard labor.
We are not asking for anything crazy. Right now, the cost of living is amazingly high, and it's so hard for us workers to pay rent.
Remember the policy about this is protected concerted activity, Rob.
You know, we bust our ass here, you know? So we deserve to kind of, you know, get out there.
Right now, we have to establish a new minimum wage in order for it to even be fair for the amount of work we do here. So that minimum wage is $25 an hour, and that step plan, it has to be redone. 80 cents a year ain't doing it anymore. Amazon will talk to you one-on-one, but it's never one-on-one. It's a manager, the whole chain of command above them, HR, and you by yourself. So they can tell you something different, you something different, you something different, and the only witnesses are the people above them who are telling them what to say. So this is why we say no, we have these concerns together. You can discuss this with us as a union, as a collective. We share these concerns. This is 600 people on this petition talking as one. They can address us as 600 people as one.
Make Amazon pay.
Make Amazon pay.
Make Amazon pay.
Make Amazon pay.
Hell yeah, make Amazon pay. And by the way, if there's any way for you to be able to pay, your support is certainly greatly appreciated. You can do that here. Cash App, $sign Indie News Network, patreon.com/Indie News Network, paypal.me. There you see /Indie News Network, INDIE. And then you can donate on Rumble. We also have rockfin.com/IND Left News. That's where we're at right now. And then the QR code that goes to our Ko-fi, ko-fi.com/Indie News Network. Hey, how about that? All right. Well,
Money, please.
thanks, everybody. I wanted to get to two different articles that came out of the Taibbi Twitter files, FOIA files, censorship, industrial complex stuff that he's been all over for the better part of 18 months. So the first one actually happened about a month ago, and I didn't really hear anybody talk about it, but it was really important because if you remember the 2020 election, and I think some of us do, one of the organizations that was highly influential was that no, Anna, we're not doing any Rockfin on the redo because we just crashed, and I'm just not setting one up. A pain in the butt. Sorry. Tell Rockfin it's a pain in the ass. Stanford Internet Observatory, again, has been very highly influential when it came to the election, to censoring Twitter, they hired this woman named Renee DiResta. They had this guy recently who just resigned from the Stanford Internet Observatory. But then we find out that not just he lost his job, but everybody lost their job. So everybody lost their job because the center
lose your job
was the
and
leading.
You lose your job.
Yeah. So the Stanford Internet Observatory is brought to heel. Now, Andrew Lowenthal had actually written one of the Twitter files articles way back like a year ago. He's from Australia. He says karma has just caught up with the Stanford Internet Observatory, which will be scaled back to just 3 staff, according to the Washington Post. The contracts of its leading protagonists or propagandists, Alex Stamos and Renee DiResta, have not been renewed. Yay!
Yay!
You know, we hate people losing their jobs, but propagandists losing their jobs. Yeah, exactly. All right. It was former CIA fellow DiResta that led the Stanford Internet Observatory's signature initiatives, the Election Integrity Project, the EIP, and the Virality Project, VP. Of course, the Virality Project was around censoring COVID stuff. Election Integrity Partnership ended up running the tabletop exercise that pre-gamed all of the Hunter Biden laptop censorship for the social media companies.
That was just Russian propaganda.
Russian scum.
You and your damn emails.
SIO's demise is a result of a string of efforts, including those of Racket, Public, the Missouri v. Biden plaintiffs, the New Civil Liberties Alliance, the Disinformation Chronicle, the Subcommittee on the Weaponization of the Federal Government, and many more. Network Effects also contributed original research. Founded with a $5 million donation from Craig Newmark. We know who he is, especially, you know, Craigslist, Craig Newmark. SIO took countering misinformation to new heights. The Virality Project advised its big tech partners to consider true stories to be misinformation. Of course they did. Right? Standard vaccine misinformation on your platform. Yeah, Of course, booby. They accuse false or misleading posts from the accounts of well-known repeat offenders. So what do they want? They want booby censored. That's RFK Jr., not actual like boobies, but yep. We're back at another stream on YouTube, guys. That has this title of Censorship Industrial Complex. And thank you for jumping over to Rumble, everybody who has. And Rumble's kick-ass because as we continue our stream, they don't actually drop our stream, but we actually have a new stream over on the INN channel as well as my own, I believe. I hope so. It's supposed to be running live. If not, then we're just over on Rumble. But
it's up on YouTube.
I think so too. What he says is that he unearthed that document while assisting Matt Taibbi with the Twitter files research just in time for his and Schellenberger's testimony before the Select Subcommittee on the Weaponization of the Federal Government. That was last March. It's perhaps the most egregious example of the Internet Research and Digital Rights Field's 180, an inorganic flip that undermined a decades-long commitment to free expression. An infiltration by the intel community, you mean, into the academic community, which there always really has been. But somebody convinced the people at the social media companies that these academics that were also CIA agents were leading experts when it came to misinformation and censorship. Yeah, that really happened. Inorganic, because the EIP and VP, the Election Integrity Partnership and Virality Partnership, were not research initiatives, as is often claimed. They were seeded by the security state, namely the Department of Homeland Security and the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, which is CISA, as demonstrated by emails released by the House Committee on the Weaponization of the Federal Government. Below the Atlantic Council's Graham Brookie, an EIP VP project partner, explains that we just set up an election integrity partnership at the request of DHS CISA. So Renee DiResta, who was lying through her fucking teeth, claiming that this was completely independent of any intel agency or anything having to do with the federal government, absolute fucking lie. And you could see that this was disseminated throughout the Atlantic Council from Graham Brookie. All right. The Atlantic Council is essentially NATO's think tank, and its board includes Pfizer CEO Albert Bourla, the former Director of National Intelligence James Clapper, former Secretary General of NATO the Honorable Lord Robinson, former U.S. Secretary of Defense and CIA Director Leon Panetta, Tara Reade's former boss, Goldman Sachs Secretary of the Board John F.W. Rogers, and many, many, many more. As Taibbi further demonstrated, Twitter was aware of the Election Integrity Partnership's links to the intel community, which, again, he discovered throughout his Twitter files and now also through the FOIA files, where they're now reverse engineering the Twitter files through FOIA requests and finding out through public documentation of people's emails exactly what was discussed between public officials and both these university officials and the social media companies and the intel agencies. That's not classified. Right. So when content takedown recommendations came into Twitter, they knew they were more than just serving suggestions. The content of those requests was made clear after the Stanford Internet Observatory was forced to release details of their internal flagging system. This again via Taibbi's reporting. And they had all of these different labels. This is being shared to Facebook. And while it's been labeled, shared in a group, official page shares didn't receive such a label. We recommend labeling all instances of the article being shared on Facebook. I mean, this is literally just nanny state internet police self-appointed by the U.S. government. Right? We found this out a month ago, that they disbanded this organization. Furthermore, that Virality Project, just to remind you why they're disbanding it, because it was a narrative changing and narrative shaping intel state operation that got exposed, partly by the Twitter files. Right? Virality Project was in close contact with the White House and hosted Surgeon General Vivek Murthy for a discussion on health misinformation. Oh, God. They also had
Not
a pipe.
Vivek.
No, not that Vivek. Not Ramaswamy.
Yeah.
They also had pipeline level access to more than 50 million COVID-related tweets per day. Oh, that seems like it would be a good idea to put the COVIDians in charge of 50 million tweets a day and which ones should be censored.
That's fine.
This was in no way an insignificant research project, right? They said they were releasing a new free endpoint in Twitter Developer Labs that delivers the full fidelity, real-time public tweets about COVID-19. We know that our standard API has limitations to make it difficult. Now, I'm reading from the email up here. Difficult to adequately study this topic due to its volume. This new stream will include all tweets related to COVID as classified by our tweet annotations, because they're the experts, of course. Just ask them. We intend to publish the keywords and hashtags of the tweet annotation powering the COVID-19 topic, so you have transparency into the contents of the stream and can supplement as needed. Which, of course, they don't. They never did that. Oh, right. The Virality Project pushed to censor other academics such as Martin Kulldorff, a former Harvard professor of epidemiology, and a former member of the CDC's vaccine safety subgroup. So as Alex Guttentag and Andrew had reported, the Virality Project had played a major role in censoring Kulldorff. On March 15th, 2021, that's a year after the lockdown started, Kulldorff had tweeted, quote, "Thinking that everyone must be vaccinated is as scientifically flawed as thinking that nobody should. COVID vaccines are important for older high-risk people and their caretakers. Those with prior natural infection do not need it, nor children. Safe and effective, safe and effective." That's Martin Kulldorff saying that, not in the YouTube. Now, Rumble, Rockfin, and everybody else, that's a whole different story. But as far as YouTube is concerned, they're safe and effective.
I love how you coughed and died right after you said that. That's definitely
right.
Definitely doesn't say anything, does it? Safe and effective.
However, many outlets describe the Stanford Internet Observatory's demise as the result of sustained right-wing campaign by conservative outlets and ignore the corruption at the heart of the project. Predictably, Stanford, DiResta, Stamos, and their supporters shout, "Everything is right-wing," as they scramble to come up with a narrative.
Stamos?
Well, maybe. No, it's Alex Stamos. It might be John's brother or cousin. But they shout everything's right wing.
Jesse for a second.
No, Uncle Jesse. Uncle Jesse. That's what my kids call Jesse now. But as they scramble to come up with a narrative that deflects accountability for their actions, they're screaming everything is right wing, because everything that I disagree with is right wing. All right. So,
dude, those pants do make you look right wing.
Well, pants check. I am wearing shorts. The truth is that the Stanford is just that SIO was doing something egregiously wrong and was targeting people regardless of ideology. Those reporters could easily find out that The lead tweet of Taibbi's House testimony has been viewed more than 40 million times. Right? So Stamos and DiResta will, of course, find other work. I think that DiResta has already found another job. Stamos already has, starting a company with former CISA head Chris Krebs, and I think we even covered that. Meanwhile, DiResta has a new book out, endorsed surprisingly by Jonathan Haidt, who was among the top signatories of the Westminster Declaration. That's kind of weird, hypocritical.
Yep.
Maybe that's why guys like C.J. Hopkins didn't want to sign it. Or maybe he did want to sign it, but then they kicked him off because he called it a sham. Oh, right. That's what happened. That's right, Michael Schellenberger. We saw that. Despite SIO crumbling accountability, still appears to be sorely lacking. Despite SIO crumbling, accountability still appears to be sorely lacking. DiResta appeared top of the bill at a recent Yale conference on propaganda. Yes, because Yale is deep in disseminating propaganda, skull and bones.
Yeah, they've never had a club that involved, bits and pieces of people and whatnot. It's never happened. Never had
Cookies.
a Bush in that club.
Bad Cookies asking the question, isn't that a conflict of interest? Yeah, I think it quite might be. If you're advocating and endorsing Renee DiResta while also signing the Westminster Declaration, you might be an op. What's up with that? What's up with that? Dude, that's becoming my favorite sound bit very quickly. It should never have gone this far. A properly self-regulating anti-disinformation field would have sniffed out bad actors early but the conversation and the ecosystem is broken. SIO shouldn't be the last center to be shut down or see leadership changes. Yeah, we're going to show you the next one right now. Breaking basic research ethics, hiding your relationship with government and intelligence agencies, protecting corporate products from proper scrutiny, and pushing for the censorship of other academics is not free academic inquiry or free speech. It's corruption and it's censorship, which he didn't say there. Andrew's nonprofit LiberNet will be strengthening their efforts over the coming months to bring accountability to other leading civil society censorship initiatives. Meanwhile, the Stanford Internet Observatory leaves a malign legacy, having damaged the reputation of the anti-disinformation field and academia more broadly. The question is, will the anti-disinformation field clean house, which we know they won't, or continue to ignore the corruption within its ranks, which we know it likely will because Clint Watts is still employed? Links to Andrew's past Stanford Internet Observatory and Virality Project related content can be found below. Andrew does great work. I actually was trying to get him on the show and try to work out a time to interview him and talk to him about this whole thing, but we just weren't able to do that. And I kind of needed to pull a story in tonight. And I'm like, you know what? Nobody's talked about the fact that this thing shut down. It was a major factor in impacting the tabletop exercise and impacting the 2020 election. And now they don't exist. And they're going to resurface somewhere else, and they'll pop up elsewhere and try to infect their narrative into the 2024 election cycle. I don't have any doubt or misgivings about that. What do you think about the Stanford Internet Observatory?
I mean, sounds like another industrial complex of mal, mis, and disinformation. You know, pretty much whatever goes against the powerful, they have to go get. You know,
well, and I think that
stamp out any discontent.
And marking, you know, look, we just like with independent platforms, it's platform whack-a-mole. We have to keep moving around and stay nimble and one step ahead. And these guys the censors are trying to do the same thing with us. They're trying to stay one step ahead with their agencies, and we've got to watch them like a hawk and be ever mindful of what they're up to. And don't take your eye off what Renee DeRest is up to, because you can guarantee she's not going anywhere. These people don't disappear. Yeah. They're like parasites. They just rebrand. The other article that came out of Racket News / the FOIA files this week was out of Clemson University. And actually, it was out of Racket News. James Rushmore, who I'd never heard of. But this was actually a really interesting article that I read earlier today. This is a paid article, so you need to be a paid subscriber to Racket News in order to be able to read this. But I'm going to share this and I'm going to read through this with everyone and let you see what's been going on with Clemson University. So what happened here was that they have been working, Racket News has been working alongside Undead FOIA to work on a project, and we covered this a few weeks ago, to work on a project to submit a mass amount of FOIA requests about the censorship industrial complex, about the communication between universities and public officials and private companies, and anything that they can get their hands on publicly. So James publishes this the other day. The FOIA request that we sent to Clemson University reveals a tight-knit relationship between university professors, federal law enforcement, and the news media. Go figure.
Yeah.
So, like we said, Stanford wasn't the only university that's participating in this. You've got societies and you've got projects and you've got groups all around the country at different universities that are monitoring on behalf of the federal government, on behalf of the intelligence community, and they've got spies everywhere. So James writes, if you've read the Twitter files, You are likely already aware of the social media platform's interactions with Clemson University's Media Forensics Hub. The relationship between the two parties was tense. Internal communications confirmed Twitter's annoyance with Clemson's practice of running to the press with claims that Russian trolls were running rampant on their site. In May 2020, Yoel Roth, we know him very famously from the Twitter files, then the head of site integrity at Twitter. He would later become their, I believe, lead general counsel or the head of security, information security. But then he was head of site integrity. He voiced some of those concerns to Nick Pickles, which I love saying that name, Nick Pickles, the company's senior global strategist.
Rugrats character?
Maybe. The senior global strategist for public policy. So back in May of 2020, Nick Pickles wrote that given that they have a U.S. government relationship, all right, happy for the DC team to pick up the relationship, but I've spoken to them in the past and similarly share Yoel's frustration that they don't take any sort of guidance on what they found. Of course not.
Yeah.
Right? So here, what's happening, Yoel Roth was saying that we've said a bunch of times, we're still happy to work directly with you on this instead of via NBC. Right? So you can see right there that they're using a cutout of NBC to funnel this stuff directly into Twitter so that they can have this disconnect and plausible deniability and say, well, we're not feeding it to Twitter. NBC is. Yeah, but you're giving it to NBC. What do you think's happening? And you're telling them to give it to them.
What was
Vijaya.
What was Vijaya up to?
Lead general count. That was lead general counsel for Twitter at the time. So I don't know if Vijaya even knew about this, but
shut your mouth.
Well, Vijaya does like to stay closed. Roth also took
you got
issue.
Nick Pickles and Vijaya, dude. Don't even act like that's normal. Someone set that up, dude.
Yoel Roth also took issue with the hub's persistent attribution of certain accounts to Russian trolls. Later that same month, he questioned the hub's Russia-heavy focus because they were designed and put there to be able to stoke fear about Russia and to plant stories about Russia. Right? So he says there, the you haven't attributed to Russia in a while comment is particularly revelatory of their motivations, IMO. Yeah, because they're accusing Twitter of helping Russia, which is amazing. What is the Media Forensics Hub? Well, let's go back. Described as an interdisciplinary team of researchers working to study and combat online deception. Yeah, the censors of the censors. Who's monitoring the monitors, right? The project kicked off in 2017. That was the year communications professor Darren Linville and economics professor Patrick Warren joined forces to uncover and expose millions of tweets they attributed to Russian trolls. Sponsored by the taxpayer-funded South Carolina Research Authority, the hub was officially launched in May of 2020. 2 years later, along with the University at Buffalo and several other institutions, it received a $5 million grant from the National Science Foundation. All for a bunch of bullshit to make up stuff about Russian trolls on Twitter. Man.
Probably dude, someone had to code Hamilton 69.
What the hell are we doing? We should be petitioning and getting some of this money. At least we're doing legitimate work to expose shit. Last May, Racket filed a FOIA request with Clemson. Our search produced a series of emails that make explicit reference to the university's dealings with federal law enforcement agencies, providing Clemson help with resources, among other things, right? So social media companies and the news media. Okay, so again, Clemson is making deals with law enforcement, social media companies, and the media. The Clemson files are difficult to summarize, but offer probably the most comprehensive portrait we've gotten yet of the role of that such ostensibly non-governmental anti-disinformation, quote-unquote, research institutions can play as middleman organizations. These emails also document the high degree of influence the school had with federal agencies and the media, even if Twitter was not always as cooperative. So they had V's. They had their V's. This is really scary shit. So again, you've got a combination. This is like literally the way they describe fascism, right? You've got corporations, government.
Well, it's how Mussolini described fascism, but yes.
Corporations, government, academia, all, and then non-governmental organizations, NGOs that are funded by the government, or at least in part. Like, how is this? This is bad. A summary of key communications is listed below, while 3 new batches of documents have been uploaded to the Racket FOIA library, where, as always, they are not paywalled. So everybody can go and read this stuff.
Hmm.
On March 7th, 2020, and that is about a week before they started locking people in their houses in the United States, Linville messaged Yoel Roth to discuss his team's work monitoring alleged Russian activity on the platform. This was also 3 days, by the way, after Super Tuesday, or 4 days. Roth, as it should be noted, was recently affiliated with both the Atlantic Council's Task Force for a Trustworthy Future Web and the Aspen Institute's Commission on Information Disorder. Recently.
Russian scum!
So they take care of their own. Yoel had to go and hide in the bathroom for about a year, afraid that somebody was going to come after him for all the stuff that he did and all the people that he censored. Nobody did. And then the censorship industrial complex came and gave him a job at the Aspen Institute and at the Atlantic Council, the kings of censorship both. Aspen Institute famously...
Twitter doesn't have a problem with this. They fixed it. Elon fixed a free speech. Free speech now.
Right.
The WEF lady came in and fixed it. It's fine.
Yes. You could tell by everybody's massive reach that doesn't pay.
The most reach, very reach, much wow.
Right.
You know?
Linville told Roth that he had hoped to have the accounts in question suspended before Super Tuesday 4 days earlier, before making reference to CNN chief international correspondent Clarissa Ward. More on her below. Linville then hinted at the level of coordination between his team, CNN, and federal law enforcement agencies. Quote, "I'm not sure what CNN or the feds have shared with you, but it's likely our list has been updated since you got information from either party." Yeah, that's not cool. They're all working in cahoots together. Darren Linville, Kevin Kane, Patrick Warren, but also now directly sending the email to Yoel Roth. So we see that. I saw you were working from home. How did you see that? Maybe he tweeted that he was. Maybe he saw on Slack that he put through their secret Slack communications, or on WhatsApp. That was the name of the damn app I couldn't think of earlier. That the Amazonians could be using potentially. But WhatsApp chats.
Or maybe...
DMs?
Maybe.
It wasn't me. They were FaceTiming, Teams. I don't know. I don't know what they used there.
Probably. Skype.
It's worth emphasizing that the Media Forensics Hub was still in development at this point. It wouldn't even officially launch for another 2 months in May. So all of this communication is going on behind the scenes as they're creating this censorship bureau. It's so freaking insidious, all of this. In a follow-up email, Linville made note of Twitter's decision to suspend some of the accounts, namely those that CNN had given Twitter. And how was CNN given the list to give to Twitter? It was funneled directly from these clowns. The significance of this correspondence cannot be understated. For
Dear
one,
Mr. Pickles, we are sending you this information. We hope it reaches you well.
For one, it reveals that CNN was in the habit of contacting Twitter with the names of accounts it attributed to Russian trolls.
Yeah.
Why is CNN reaching out to Twitter with that shit? Number one. Number two, at the same time...
they've been listening to Hamilton 69, bro.
No,
they thought they knew.
No, this is March of 2020. There is no Hamilton 69 yet.
Still 68, I guess.
No, not even. At the same time, it also underscores Twitter's hesitancy to accept many of the Clemson professor's claims. The platform was much more inclined to take action in response to CNN's claims of account inauthenticity. So what would happen? Emails from the hub, by contrast, were less likely to spur a response on Twitter's end. So I think the hub ended up figuring that out and started funneling their requests directly through the media. And all of a sudden, you see a lot fewer hub requests and a lot more media requests. When reached for comment, Linville wrote, this email was in reference to a Russian-supported troll farm operating under the guise of an NGO in Ghana and Nigeria and working to influence conversations here in the States. Sure, buddy.
Scum!
Yeah, he's got about as much credibility as Keith Olbermann. After identifying the coordinated activity on social media, we partnered with CNN on reporting the story. They did a fantastic job. Clarissa Ward and her team traveled to Ghana, uncovered the campaign, and interviewed one of the individuals in charge. CIA, what? No, they would never do anything like that.
It's like a Bond movie. What are you talking about?
Right, where they literally have like the cardboard office set up in Ghana for her to walk into with the CIA agent acting like he's the freaking
Hughes there in a pith helmet. Like, excuse me, Mr. Bond.
Wow.
You know? Ugh.
In a subsequent email, Roth noted his eagerness to help Linville, but he also expressed some reservations about Linville's conclusions. Quote, I'd note that activity similar to what the network was engaged in may not actually be connected to the same actors. Yeah, meaning, and there's not a lot out there that's similar, that's decided not Russian. The same attribution challenges we've discussed in the past. Apparently he's been calling that bullshit for a while. Linville encouraged Roth to trust his team's judgment. Trust me, bro. Before making a comment about how various federal agencies, social media analytics from Graphica, remember Ben Nimmo, who used to work in the Obama administration, is now running Graphica.
Finding Nemo?
Maybe. And CNN have all been looped in on the alleged Russian accounts. Again, they're all in one big circle jerk about Russian nonsense that doesn't actually exist in order to whip the public into a frenzy.
That sounds very similar to another phrase, you know.
Well,
but
take for it what you will.
What do I know? One big club.
Yep, and you ain't in it. Linville declined to name which specific agencies his team contacted. Quote, when we identify malign foreign influence with possible national security influence, as was clearly the case here, we inform appropriate authorities. It's worth mentioning that in an interview with PBS in 2022, Linville concluded, of course, that Russian trolls aren't as common as people think they are, but they are there. So are Ukrainian trolls that are funded by the Defense Department and call themselves NAFO.
Check out Meme Wars on our channel. Big thanks to Clarenberg for putting that article out. NAFO, appreciate you.
On March 11th, Linville asked Roth and Twitter threat intelligence lead Patrick Conlon, we talked about him because he's formerly the Department of Defense and he used to work for the DOD and other federal intelligence agencies, and no one ever vetted him, really. So Linville asked them about the suspension of an account that his team hadn't flagged for removal. He asked them about the possibility of taking more strategic approaches to questions of account suspension, as his team hoped to continue tracking smaller accounts. Now, this is what's crazy. This interaction is part of a recurring pattern in which Clemson researchers sought to forge a closer relationship with Twitter with Twitter's moderation team, right? So what it says was a major area of disagreement between Linville and Roth concerned Twitter's approach to removing accounts. Roth wanted them gone. He insisted that no one benefits from the continued presence of inauthentic activity on social media and encouraged Linville to hand over the names of any accounts his team may have been keeping to themselves. He even invoked former special counsel Robert fucking Mueller. Come on. Really?
Of course he did.
Yep. We in the Senate Intelligence Committee and Robert Mueller have all called for open info sharing here. No one benefits from the continued presence of inauthentic activity on social media.
Mueller.
Just tell me what accounts I can ban for you, sir. Linville then responds by explaining his team's
Please let
reasoning.
me lick your boot, sir.
Linville responds by explaining his team's reasoning. He wanted Twitter to preserve the smaller accounts because they were less likely to gain traction, but more likely to waste the alleged Russian network's time and resources. He also believed that maintaining such accounts would help his team better understand the network's tactics and behavior. He wanted to study them, and then hopefully that they'll lead him to the big fish. I mean, he thinks he's Columbo. Right?
One more thing.
Roth argued that Linville's preferred strategy was not the one we choose to advance in this space based on our approach and the approach of the rest of the industry to combating these threats. We don't let them go and monitor and watch them and hope they do something so that we can catch them later. We just shut them the fuck down, is what he's saying. At the same time, he acknowledged that working with Linville's findings would probably prove more efficient than waiting for law enforcement. No wonder why he got a job at the Aspen Institute now. On March 12th, Linville's partner, economics professor Patrick Warren, jumped into the conversation. He claimed that the feds and CNN were much more receptive to the Clemson professor's input than Twitter was. Well, these guys believe me. Why don't you? Come on, bro. He described how CNN had provided them with a researcher and cited how Clarissa Ward and her team had traveled to Africa to follow up on their research because it was set up by us.
Mm-hmm.
He also noted that law enforcement had been open with Linville and Warren to the extent that they can, under regulatory restrictions, and that they can, and mentioned that they'd shared resources with the club's team. It's all on the hush-hush. Come on, man. We can't really tell you, but we're going to tell you anyway. Make you feel really important. Holy shit. As strained as the dynamic between Twitter and Clemson could be, I can't believe there even is a dynamic. CNN's relationship with the two parties appeared much more amicable. Fuck you, CNN. The news network was willing to share alleged Russian tweets with the platform while also providing the Clemson professors with research personnel. This is literally the Clinton News Network.
Oh, those Russians.
This is the Clinton News Network come to life right here. The Anderson Cooper CIA-led news network.
Yep.
The Warren email, and that's not Elizabeth Warren, but the partner of this Clemson project. The Warren email also reveals the sophisticated nature of Clemson's collaboration with federal agencies. His third point is especially salient. That what resources and information did those law enforcement agencies provide? When asked for comment, Warren wrote, emphasis ours, at the same time, our impression was that the FBI had been following up with local investigations and foreign partners. Twitter, in contrast, didn't seem to be dedicating any significant effort to this project. And then we find out that the FBI really hadn't been. So it was really CNN, but of course we know that it was CNN funded by and led by the U.S. government or somebody affiliated with them and funded by the U.S. government. Linville also made reference to his team's relationship with federal law enforcement in a July 2019 email to Yoel Roth. According to Linville, this guy Linville, he ran the Clemson project here. He and his team regularly share what they've learned as well as accounts they feel are suspicious with various federal agencies. Of course they do, because they're all in cahoots together. Linville also described how he'd spent an hour talking CNN out of running a story that he believed to be rooted in limited information and too little analysis. Who the hell are you to decide, dude? Well, he's self-appointed Twitter cops. That's what these guys are. The censorship police.
Regulators.
Yep. A subsequent email from Roth to Warren and Linville sheds further light on the nature of CNN's relationship with both Twitter and the Clemson team. According to Roth, Twitter was in the habit of sharing data with CNN, and at one point, CNN sent the hub an unofficial version of the information they'd gathered. What does he say? Thank you very much, my friends. It looks like we missed this one as we're parsing out the AI face accounts from the Ghanaian ones. We sent our data to CNN as we're still working on finalizing it, so it's a little surprising they shared a non-final set with y'all, but it seems like this worked out. Yeah, it sure did. For who? Linville and Warren's discussions with social media platforms weren't limited to Twitter. In March 2022, Linville contacted Facebook moderation leads Olga Belaglova and David Agronovich.
Yeah, formerly,
no, thank you. David Agronovich is formerly the National Security Council, because you know that he's got no intel ties.
Belogalova.
Mr. Belogalova. Yeah. Is she bombastic? Olga's bombastic.
Yeah, I hope so.
Right?
Super fantastic, even.
Yes. So Linville contacted Facebook moderation leads to express doubt about the viability of a proposed data sharing program. According to this guy, the lawyers with whom the hub had consulted were very afraid of GDPR, which is weird because GDPR is a European thing. Why are you worried about election integrity having to do with GDPR? And this is very strange. All right. We've had many conversations with different legal teams, however, and as of now, it isn't looking good. All right. Now, the reason why is because it lists about 50 Facebook accounts in order of date of birth. You're doxing people right there. And in many cases, Twitter accounts that repost the Facebook content. Right. A few of these accounts you've already suspended. Most of these Facebook accounts have the same date of birth. That's kind of interesting. At least one of these, Rima's Malaysia, is also active on Instagram, and there are clear suggestions that the same actor is running both the Twitter and Facebook accounts. That's interesting.
I mean, just because they had the same birthday? Okay.
Well, 50 Facebook accounts with the same birthday that were posting similar content, that might actually...
Sure.
Was that Shabba Ranks or Shaggy? I think it might have been Shaggy. Boombastic.
Shaggy.
Right. So, also, I remember in 2020, there were a lot of conversations, even in my company that was based out of Europe, about GDPR. But I can't imagine why this Twitter censorship having to do with Russian accounts would be worried about GDPR, because Russia doesn't even participate in GDPR. When asked about these concerns, Linville wrote, "Well, I'm not an attorney. I'm not confident in my understanding of the law or my ability to articulate concerns raised by our institution related to the proposed agreement. So basically, I was talking out my ass and letting other people speak for me, and that's probably not such a good idea. Regardless...
But I'll do it again.
I'll fucking do it again. Regardless, it remains clear that the Media Forensics Hub has, or at least had, considerable reach, a prime example of how academic anti-disinformation research can act as a relay station between federal law enforcement, the corporate press, and internet platforms." And that's what it's trying to do, is to show that pipeline and that interconnectedness and that incestuousness.
Game of Thrones?
Kind of. James says that below are a few other noteworthy emails you might find in this FOIA disclosure, which we've uploaded again in full to the Racket FOIA library. The hub's activities are almost too extensive to fully document, but among the highlights are its initial contact with CISA, its advocacy on behalf of a NATO official, and its concerns about tweets touting the efficacy of the Russian COVID-19 vaccine. Weird.
Yeah.
Right? In October...
how dare they...
How dare they develop
question the efficacy of a vaccine? There must be anti-vax, Indy. That's terrible.
Bad cookies. You're not an attorney, but you will create the sources that attorneys will point to when they argue about Russian troll farms. You're influencing the law. Yep. In October 2018, Linville described his team's methodology for identifying Twitter accounts they attributed to Russian Internet Research Agency, the IRA. One of the criteria that he cited is commonalities in the email with which the account is registered. When Roth pointed out that the email address used to register an account is not public information, how did you get it? Well, he revealed that his team's methodology for gathering that information. We pretend to have forgot the password and infer from the shortened email. So it says, when you say you forgot your password, it says, we sent the email to in blah, 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 blah at gmail.com.
Yeah.
That's pretty fucked up.
Mm-hmm.
In February of 2019, Linville and Warren made contact with Matthew Masterson of CISA. Masterson currently serves as Microsoft's Director of Information Integrity. No conflict of interest there. He also spent a year as a non-resident fellow at the now dissolving Stanford Internet Observatory. Their initial correspondence was arranged by Twitter Public Policy Manager Kevin Kane. So you've got Twitter, Microsoft, everybody's all the Stanford Internet Observatory guy, right? And CISA. So that's not good. In July of 2019, again, this is stuff going back 4 and 5 years. We're doing forensic deep dives into what happened, how these agencies were created, what the idea and framework behind them were, and how they operated, so that we can be aware for 2024 to see what they're trying to do, because they claimed that they were going to be ramping this up. I remember we called this a couple of weeks ago, that their idea was to run another version of this times 3. They wanted like 3 or 8 election integrity partnerships to be running simultaneously. So by all means, read this. This is, again, over at Racket, and you have to be a paid member. So that's why I want to go through this. All right. Linville raised concerns about Roth's failure to suspend an account he believed was being operated by the Internet Research Agency, the Russian agency, alleged. He described his team's exchanges with Roth as exceedingly one-sided, meaning they're trying to pin this on the Russians, and they're Russiagating Roth, and he's resisting at that point. But you know what happens after a bunch of time of doing that? It wears on you. So that by August of 2020, when they're ready to set Roth up for the tabletop exercise about Hunter Biden's laptop, he's a lot more receptive to it. And they end up censoring DMs of the New York Post article. In November of 2019, Linville mentioned how a colleague from the NATO Strategic Communications Center of Excellence in Latvia wanted to know why certain Twitter accounts had been suspended. This colleague was doing research on QAnon. Okay, why does Latvia from NATO Strategic Comms want to know about QAnon?
Yeah. Well, because they need to know how to better lie about it, pretty much. In
October 2020, Linville made reference to the Media Forensics Hub's work with the Commission on Presidential Debates to identify Twitter accounts with various obvious signs of inauthenticity. Here we go. They keep going. They keep going and going. Finally, in March of 2022, this one's unbelievable. Linville emailed Roth and Twitter threat disruption analyst William Newland. You know that last name, right? Brother of the decades-long Department of State fixture, Victoria Newland. He asked for help in convincing Meta to remove the Russian language Instagram accounts mentioned above and encouraged them to provide their colleagues at Facebook with any knowledge that might prove helpful. Linville wrote, quote, given the ongoing war in Ukraine and the daily atrocities taking place, thanks to Ukraine bombing the Donbass, but that's not what he said, I'm sure we can all agree shutting down Russian state information on every platform is in our shared best interests. They wanted to Alex Jones these people. Newland, who conveniently also used to work at Facebook, responded by noting that they are 100% aligned on the importance of getting this stuff right and mitigated across the whole platform ecosystem. And I remember we had talked about that guy, Mudge Zatko, who brought in, it's Alethea Group, all right? Alethea Group was
Frank Zappa's long-lost son.
Maybe. No, Zatko, not Zappa. But that guy, through his friends at the Alethea Group, were trying to map internet behavior across social media platforms so that they could potentially try to get people shut down across them. Like they did to Alex Jones, like they tried to do to Trump.
Yeah.
Right. So according to Newland, the Twitter team was in close touch with its peers in tech, and rival companies were generally aware of one another's approaches to abuse mitigation. The reason why is because they all hire each other's tech and IT security people. Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, there is a Media Forensics Hub FOIA production right here, and that is an entire free to all article that has all of the raw emails, more than 250 plus pages of FOIA productions and results pertaining to just the Clemson University Forensics Media Hub.
Well, and I'm sure there's a lot more than Clemson.
Well, here in the Racket FOIA library, you've got the ones that we've covered in the past, the Gary Kasparov one. We didn't actually read that article, but that's available. And the stuff about Kate Starbird and the University of Washington that we covered.
Sure.
Right. So Cookies is asking a good question here. How is this not state-driven propaganda? How is this different from the fascism they blame Russia of being? And this is like Soviet Russia. This isn't even like current modern day Russia.
Well, the Soviet Russia we were lied into believing. But yes.
Yes. Right?
Yeah.
Tara Reade, welcome to the stream. How do we miss that? Hi. Who are these people? Let's give Tara, who are these people?
Who are these people?
There you go.
There you go.
Everybody follow Tara over on Instagram and TikTok. She has new accounts over there. I believe it's at Real Tara Reade in both cases. So check her out over there. All right. So we have a couple of quick hits real quick, and then we will get to boats. And I think we're holding pretty well so far. So let's just do that real fast.
Tick, tack, toe. A winner.
Who are these people?
Nancy was not a winner this week. No. So continue reading. No, hey now. Continue. Get out of here.
You're an all-star?
Okay. That's nonsense. So remember last week, we did a little bit of a piece, about 2 minutes, on Sean O'Brien, the Teamsters, and the Amazon Labor Union, and they were getting a puff piece in the New York Times, and I said, the New York Times doesn't do a puff piece on the Pudork Times, yes, that they don't do a puff piece on you and your labor union unless they're doing it for the benefit of the bosses. So, what, as expected, first they build you up, then they knock you down. So first they wanted to make it like the Teamsters are doing such a great thing and you know, they're representing workers. But then this week, the attack ad came, or the attack article, how a Teamster leader's flirtations with Trump have divided the union.
Uh-huh.
So again, they're making Sean O'Brien the face of labor, not the workers that he actually represents at UPS and everywhere else.
You mean politicizing a union is bad? Man, who would have thunk that?
See, at least he's going to both parties to politicize them. So he's
I would go to neither, but
politicizing,
sure.
Yes. But he also wants to get laws
passed. The New York
passed.
Times is not going to do this for any time him meeting with Biden has divided the union.
Right.
That's never going to happen.
Right. And see, that's what's funny is that he has requested equal time at both conventions, but just the fact that he's even talking to a Republican, as if there are no Republicans working in any Teamsters warehouses, facilities, truck drivers, anywhere else around the country, that Sean O'Brien shouldn't be talking with Trump, especially now that it looks like he will be likely to probably win in November, given everything that's been going down. But I just wanted to mention that, you know, they don't do this unless they have a plan, an agenda, and, you know, Sean O'Brien plays ball with them. So what's going to happen now is he'll have like a little bit of a back and forth, but they're elevating his profile. They're making him the face, and they're doing that on purpose. Also, I wanted to make note, and I thought this was a funny place to screen cap it. Our friend Snow Himbo of the politically homeless variety, as well as on Snow Himbo Gaming on Saturday nights. Check that out. Last night he was playing the Thaumaturge. He was on Hardlens Media yesterday talking about the psychology of Biden's speech, I think, or something having to do with Biden. He had a great time, got some great feedback. Really appreciate Kit for inviting him on, supporting INN and independent media.
I don't stand for that.
You don't? I thought you did. And then finally, we've got our weekly calendar for this week, what our plans are. I don't know if this is what's going to happen, so this is all subject to change. You can, again, find all that, like you see on the Nightbot says, at indienews.network. But last night we had now that's on Rumble only, so you've got to go to rumble.com/c/indie-news-network, and you can find Pro Wrestling Talk. It did not go out to Kick or to YouTube last night, as well, or Rockfin. It was a Rumble exclusive as well. And then last night, Snow Himbo gamed. We are live right now. How do we miss that? Just wrap it up after a crash. And then we've got boats smashing and other boats next. We'll do some React funny stuff. Tomorrow night, I don't think we have anything scheduled. Soon there will be another show coming on Monday nights. Snow Himbo and Yeti are planning on doing something coming soon, and they'll make an announcement sooner rather than later. Tuesday night, we plan on having an American Tradition with Jesse. Wednesday night, these guys will be back for INN News. And then Thursday, Politically Homeless. And we've got our 3-show Friday planned. As far as I know, for Friday, Tara said she's planning on having a show and sending us something to produce for Friday in the afternoon. And then Friday night, 7 o'clock, Angel in the afternoon. 10:30, we have our Jesse Jett clip show. We ran the first two as a rerun kind of last Friday night. They're great. You should definitely come and hang out at the Jesse clip shows on Friday night. Tara says she will be back
American
soon.
Tradition.
Nice. We look forward to that, Tara. And stay safe and out there, and we're glad you're around and crushing it and speaking out. All right. So let's get ready for boats. Everyone's want to laugh. So Reef will drop the links in the chat. We're not going to direct you afterwards because we're on a new stream, but Reef will have the links. You can find us over on Rockfin, Rumble, and YouTube. It's a separate stream just for boats smashing into other boats. We will be deleting it from YouTube as soon as we're done. So check it out over there. But it'll stay up on Rumble in case you miss it. So,
and Twitter and
Twitch,
Rockfin maybe.
Rockfin and Kick, I believe it'll stay up on Kick. We'll see. But All right, everyone. Well, keep supporting independent media. I love you. We need it more than ever. Thank you so much, everyone. And we'll see you soon for Boats.
Yep. Keep listening to what Boats had to tell you. See you in a bit, fam. I gotta scroll down here. Hold on.
Huh?
Where's he even at?
Are you fucking kidding me? Is that no! We just fucking lost the stream.
I think I liked it better being blind, when I couldn't read between the lines, and when I couldn't see the cracks in the structure that lay bare before me the whole time. I think I liked it better back when I suspended disbelief and swallowed pride. I thought I knew the difference in the red from the blue, but they both bleed us so dry. They both bleed us so dry.
My favorite songs don't hit the same way. I get to the end of a 4-minute track and I'm only looking back thinking, what did they actually say?